Hey YouTube, what is up? I decided to show you guys what I've been doing in my off time when I haven't been playing competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! I only really played twice in the last year, and that's when I got my regional invite in New Jersey. I played full power spiral format, and then I played basically at the nationals format this year. Other than that, I haven't really been playing at all competitively, so what I've been doing is actually collecting max goat. So I figured now that I have the deck almost complete, I'd show you guys what I've been working towards for the last 2 or 3 years. There are 2 cards in this deck that I don't have max rarity, this being one of them. And but other than that, I think I have literally everything else max rarity. So if you know of a card that I actually don't have max rarity, definitely let me know in the comments down below, because that's really what I'm trying to strive for with this deck, to be honest with you. The first card I play is Sinister Serpent. This card is really good at just maintaining hand advantage. When this card's in the graveyard during your standby, you get to add it back. It has a lot of utility with Graceful Charity. It has a lot of utility against Delinquent Duo. It helps you kind of not lose your entire hand with that kind of stuff. You could also use Metamorphosis on this, add it back immediately, and you don't lose hand advantage. One of the cards that I don't have max rarity, the technical highest rarity for this card is the TFK Super Rare Portuguese version. It was a promo for the False-Bound Kingdom, and it was kind of hard to get. Originally, that card was about 20 bucks, but then once GOAT format kind of really caught on in the last like 3 to 4 years, it went up to somewhere around 500 to 600. So that kind of sucks, but I actually had a chance to even buy one at YCS New Jersey, but I got sniped by a vendor at the last second, which kind of really sucked, honestly. I was looking for this card for a while, but half the fun of this deck is basically the stories you get from trying to build it, so I'm not too beat up about it. But if you do know somebody getting rid of this card, definitely let me know. I'm very interested. Next up, I play 2 Magical Merchant. This card is very popular in the Chaos version of this deck, the Chaos Control variant of the GOAT format deck. The reason you play Magical Merchant is because it's a light, it's a level 1, it's a Metamorphosis target for 1000 Eyes Restrict, and it also helps you get your game started pretty much. This card basically, when flipped, mills cards until you get to a spell or trap, and that adds that card to your hand. So it actually basically replaces itself in hand. You don't lose hand advantage by playing this card. I mean, unless you get knocked. And it helps you actually get more cards to your graveyard, which helps make Call the Haunted and Premature Burial live. It allows you to actually, do some pretty crazy stuff. I've actually milled a Jinzo off this before and drawn Call of the Haunted, which is just pretty broken. So it allows you to do some fun stuff, and it's also a light target, which the Chaos Control version of this deck really needs, because there's not too many lights that are that good in this format. I just forgot to mention the rarity on this. This is from CP05. Most GOAT cards that are high rarity or highest rarity are actually super rare. It's just a weird thing that back then the highest rarity was basically super rare for these champion pack and tournament pack promos. Next up are my 2 Super Magician of Faiths. These are from CP02. This is another card that's kind of iconic for this format. If you don't know what it does, when it's flipped, it just adds a spell from your graveyard to your hand. There's some interesting interactions with this card and with Tsukiyomi. Same thing for Magical Merchant and stuff like that. Tsukiyomi is basically Book a Moon as a monster, and what you can do is Book a Moon this with Tsukiyomi's effect and just flip it back up and resolve it once every turn. You just kind of loop it because Tsukiyomi returns to hand, so you kind of get a kind of just endless loop going. My friend Lewis actually resolved Koichi like 7 turns straight once against my friend Jack. This one's a little better than Magical Merchant just because you get to choose what you get to add from your hand, and usually your best spells are in the graveyard, because once you draw them, you use them right away. You can use it to add back Pot of Greed, Graceful, Delinquent Duo, all your power cards pretty much. The next card I play is the only other card in this deck that I don't have highest rarity, and that is Morphing Jar. This is from TP4. This is a super rare, but the highest rarity of this card is TP2. It's an ultra rare, and technically it's not even the TP2 Morphing Jar, it's the TP2 Jinzo Jar. There is a misprint of Morphing Jar from TP2 that has Jinzo's foiling in the background. That one goes anywhere from I think like $600 to like $1,000. I know there's one on eBay for like $2,000, but that guy's on crack, so I wouldn't trust that really. But the Jinzo Jar is really probably one of the most expensive and hardest to find cards, because it's a misprint of a Tournament Pack Ultra Rare, and Tournament Pack Ultra Rares were like 1 in every 144 packs. But that's the only other card besides this card that I don't have max rarity. Morphing Jar is something that some people decide not to play, and for good reason. If your opponent hits into this at the wrong time, or if they use it themselves, they can add a lot of hand advantage back. If your opponent has 5 cards and you Morphing Jar them, it's not too bad. But if your opponent has 1 card and you have to use Morphing Jar because it's the only card you have in your hand, and they get to draw 4 cards off of you, that's never a good feeling. Although there have been some games where I've been able to be a spicy guy and use Morphing Jar to actually make them deck out, because they have to mandatory draw 5. It's not like card destruction where they just draw however many they had in hand. So this is a little bit of a spicy card that some people don't play. Most people do, and I really do like it at 1 in this format. And now we get into the non-flip effect monsters, except for obviously Sinister Serpent. I play 1 Sangan just because it searches out all these guys. Usually Sangan honestly searches out the Sinister Serpent, just because Sinister Serpent is such a great card at replacing itself hand advantage wise. This is a super rare. Like I said before, most of these cards are super rare, highest rarity. I really do like the way this old school Super Sangan looks. It kind of looks like retro Yu-Gi-Oh to me. This is one of the cards that, you know, obviously you see in the show and it just reminds you of like old Yu-Gi-Oh. I really like this card. There's a couple other of these gold cards that just remind me of old Yu-Gi-Oh when I was a kid. So it kind of gives you like that nostalgia feeling when you play this deck. I also play 1 Spirit Reaper. This is a CP03 super rare. This just helps you stop getting OTK'd. It can't be destroyed by battle, but if it's targeted by an effect, you know, it just automatically kills itself. There's some weird interactions with this in Book of Moon, because you wonder if Book of Moon has priority to book it face down, or because it's targeted, does it destroy itself? That's some of the stuff I actually like about Goat format, is there's some weird old interactions, and especially with stuff like priority. I'll get into that later, but like there's some weird interactions with like priority and monster effects, and like activating monster effects before, you know, spell speed 2 cards can go. It's some of the stuff like that, like the weird minutia of old Yu-Gi-Oh. That's kind of what I really like about Goat, which makes it a really different format from how this, you know, game actually evolved into what it is today. I feel like Goat, because of those old like priority and like game rulings, kind of made it a better and more fun format, and it kind of felt like the show to me. I don't know. Next up, I play 1 Tribe Infecting Virus. You usually play this card or Azura Priest in this deck. I prefer this because it helps get rid of other cards. Azura Priest and this card both are great at getting rid of Scapegoat. You just discard a card and, you know, call Beast. I think it gets rid of all the Scapegoat tokens. Azura Priest just smacks into all of them. But this has a lot more utility, because a lot of my friends actually play Chaos Control. So if I can get rid of, you know, Chaos Sorcerers with this, it's actually really strong. And it's basically just good spot removal, which is pretty lacking in this format, if I'm honest with you. There's only a few cards that really get rid of other monsters besides by battle. So, you know, unless you're playing like Night Assailant, you know, there's not much else you could do with a normal summon to get rid of bigger monsters. I also play 1 Breaker the Magical Warrior, also a super rare. This is a TP7, I believe. This card is one of my favorites because it's one of the few spell removals you actually, or spell and trap removals you actually have in this format. And if you don't use the spell and trap, you know, if you don't use the spell counter on it to actually pop the spell or trap that your opponent has, or if your opponent doesn't have a spell or trap to pop, this card allows you to basically just have a 1900 beat stick on a normal summon, which is hard for a lot of people to out, to be honest with you. This is one of the biggest monsters you could summon without using the spell counter, and a lot of people struggle to get over this card. I also play 2 Ultimate Rare. I believe they're the first AP01 Tsukiyomis, because it's basically just Book of Moon, and Book of Moon is broken in this format. Tsukiyomi has a lot of crazy interactions with a lot of cards in this format. The flip monsters get to resolve pretty much endlessly if your opponent can't stop you from doing that. This card with Thousand Eyes Restrict is great at removing your opponent's monsters, because you just steal a monster with Thousand Eyes Restrict, summon Tsukiyomi, book the Thousand Eyes, flip it back up, and steal another one of your opponent's monsters. That's kind of just how you break their board late game. Setting up, you know, loops like this, these small 2-card combos, just allow you to generate so much advantage. It's kind of ridiculous, and that's why I really like Tsukiyomi. This Ultimate Rare is actually really good looking. This definitely came out after Goat format, but it's just considered highest rarity, so that's why I'm playing it. And next up, I play 2 Dekoichi. These are Ultimate Rare First Edition from RDS. Not everybody plays Dekoichi in regular Goat control. I mean, people play this in Chaos control because it's a dark, it's a flip monster. It has, you know, a decent stat. It allows you to draw deeper into your deck, get to your power cards. Some people just don't play this in Goat. I don't know why. It's just personal preference. I really like this card, and when you draw both of them, it's actually not bad. If you draw 2 Magician of Faiths, it's kind of shitty, to be honest, but if you draw 2 Dekoichi and you have one face up and you flip the other, drawing 2 is pretty broken. I'm not gonna lie with that. So that's why I really like Dekoichi. It's just another one of those cards that allows you to regain the hand advantage you lose by setting it on the field. And that's pretty much, you know, what the whole format is. All these cards just kind of replace themselves in hand, or replace them with cards from the grave, and they just kind of slowly accrue advantage over time. Next up, surprisingly enough, is a card that also allows you to draw. That is Erinite Parshat. These are first ed ultra rares. A lot of the higher like level monsters aren't super rares. I kind of like that, honestly, because the lower monsters are super, and the bigger you get, the higher the rarity gets. I think that's actually kind of cool. Erinite Parshat, when it deals damage to your opponent, you get to draw a card. It's a 1900 beat stick. It's really, really good. People play it in all, kinds of goat control decks, chaos control decks, just because there's not that many good light monsters. Obviously, Thunder Dragon in like chaos control is really strong, but this is such a good card as well, just because you get to draw every time you deal damage. And the piercing's pretty decent too. I also play one Jinzo, which some people don't play in Goat Control. They play it in Chaos Control and stuff like that, or they side it in Goat Control, but I really like it in the main deck. Jinzo is just such a strong card. The interaction this has with Call of the Haunted is pretty broken, because Call of the Haunted can summon it back, and then it turns off Call of the Haunted, so even if they MST the Call of the Haunted, Jinzo still stays on the field afterwards, or if they Heavy Storm you late game, Jinzo still stays on the field. So it's really, really, really strong. There is one card that is technically on, I think, equal rarity with it, which is the PSV non-first edition, but instead of the secret rare going this way, like diagonally this way, it's a misprint where the secret rare actually goes this way. So that's on parity with the first edition, I believe. If the first edition is on parity with a unlimited, I'm going to go with the first edition, just because they're so much harder to find, to be honest with you. And I really, really like the gold stamp in the corner, to be honest. And the last main deck monster I play is BLS. This is ultra rare IOC first edition, pretty minty actually. There is one card that is on parity with this for max rarity, which is the Japanese Ultimate Rare, but I don't know if I really want to play Japanese cards in my GOAT deck. I know technically like the Ultimate Rare Thousand Eyes is considered the highest rarity over like the original Ultra Rare as well, but I'm not sure if I want to actually get Japanese cards in my GOAT deck yet. It's something I'll see later on, but I'm really focusing on just trying to find these two cards, to be honest with you. BLS is just such a cool card, and the fact that you actually get to use it in a format is pretty fun. It's just so broken. The fact that it can attack twice, deal 3,000 damage, or do spot removal is pretty freaking broken. When this card's coming out too, when your opponent just randomly looks at their graveyard after drawing for turn, what's up. So that's kind of the funny thing I think about with this card too. This is one of the cards that I use as an example to kind of describe priority in Yu-Gi-Oh! Back then. If your opponent has like Torrential Tribute and you summon BLS, they can't torrential you before you get a chance to activate BLS. It's kind of weird. You call priority and you get to use BLS's effect, and to that they can actually chain Torrential Tribute. So it's not like modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Where they get torrential before you get to activate a spell speed 1 effect. You actually get to activate the spell speed 1 effect before your opponent can activate spell speed 2, which is kind of weird, to be honest with you. Metamorphosis is one of the cards that kind of defines this format. It's super rare, champion pack. Some people play 3. I think 3 is a little too much. It's a great card. It definitely gives you some toolbox crazy capabilities with the extra deck, but I feel like 3 always made me brick, so I kind of went down to 2. I'm liking it at 2, to be honest with you. Metamorphosis is just one of those cards that's kind of indicative of this format. I mean, that's kind of what the format's named after, Goat Control, because you use this to make Thousand Eyes off a Scapegoat. Yeah, it's just one of those like super nostalgic cards, and it kind of is a blowout at certain points, to be honest with you. Like the extra deck monsters you can bring out off of this are pretty nuts, and we'll get into that when I show you them in a little while. Next up, I play 2 Knock. There isn't a crazy high rarity for this. These are just first edition super rares from the original pack. There's no champion pack or astral pack or ulti or ultra rare or anything like that, just the original first edition supers. But this is one of the cards that just has like that nostalgic artwork for me. I really, really like the way the foiling is done on this. One of mine is actually in pretty bad condition. I'll be honest with you, like I feel like the card's like dinged up behind the sleeve and stuff like that, but that was the one I had since I was a kid, so that's kind of why I play it. This card is really, really strong because when you hit your opponent's like Magician of Faith, they have to banish the other copy from the deck, and you do too. But it's one of those like equal trades, to be honest with you, where you get rid of your opponent's monster, but then you lose cards from your deck as well. So you lose a little utility, but you also help get rid of your opponent's board. So I think this is one of the older, more balanced spot removal cards we had. And then I play 2 Super Book of Moon. These are champion pack supers. They're English. A lot of these cards people can find pretty easily in non-English, but believe it or not, the English is actually the highest rarity. Unlike modern Yu-Gi-Oh, where a lot of people consider like foreign cards to be the highest rarity, like Italian or French, with these older cards like Champion Pack and Retro Pack, the highest rarity is actually English. So these were a pain in the butt to find. I actually found a bunch of foreign ones, but I just got lucky at Nats and was able to pick up 2 copies. And then I play 2 Scapegoats. These are Retro Pack 1 Ultra Rares English, which is the highest rarity. I really exerted a lot of effort to find these cards. I actually had Germans because I couldn't even believe I was able to find German retro packs, but then I sold them on eBay and was able to finally pick up 2 ultra rares at Nats. I met a couple of really, really cool old school vendors, and I made a couple friends in the process, and I ended up actually being able to get these cards all at Nats. Like the highest rarity, hardest to get cards that I've been looking for like 2 years, I managed to get in like 6 hours. So it was a really, really satisfactory feeling. This is what the format's pretty much named after. Scapegoat is what gives Goat its name. It doesn't mean greatest of all time, it just means scapegoat. This card with Thousand Eyes Restrict and Metamorphosis pretty much define the whole format. For the equips, you play 1 Snatch Steal and 1 Premature Burial. There's no crazy high champion pack or tournament pack for these, just ultra rare first editions from the original pack. These are some of the cards that I really do like the artwork on. Premature Burial is kind of stuck in my mind for some reason as I was a kid. Snatch Steal I didn't remember too much, but you know, as I kind of think about it, it's kind of fucked up because it's about like kidnapping and stuff like that. But these are just 2 cool cards. There's some pretty cool interactions with these in Book of Moon, where if you steal the monster, or you revive your monster from the graveyard and you book it, or you use Tsukiyomi to book it, you actually just get to keep the monsters regardless of whether or not these leave the field. So that's kind of like the Jinzo and Call the Haunted play, which is kind of cool. That's just some of the weird like interactions I like about these older formats. And for the spell and trap removal you play, I play 1 Heavy Storm. There's no crazy high rarity for this. This is just first edition super rare from the original pack. This one has like that old school faded ink look though, which I kind of dig, to be honest with you. I wish more cards looked like this. I don't know, it just makes me think the card is old, and because it kind of does look old, to be honest with you. And for the other card that I play for spot removal is 1 MST. Technically speaking, the ultimate rare can be the higher rarity, but this is actually, I don't think I'm going to be able to pick it up on the camera. I'm going to try and like flex the card a little bit. You might be able to see it after I tell you what it is. But this is a Suijin misprint MST. These cards are triple sleeved because they're expensive, so I'm trying not to damage them. But this is a Suijin misprint MST. If you don't know what it is, you can Google it. It's very similar to a Jinzo Jar, where this has Suijin's foiling in the background. If you look like right here, this is where the Suijin like circle symbol actually is. This card I didn't even know existed before Nats, and I was able to pick it up for an amazing price. So I definitely couldn't say no. And this is actually probably the rarest card in this deck, even though it's not the most expensive. It's just so hard to find because a lot of people don't know that this card exists. A lot of people know about Jinzo Jar, not a lot of people know about Suijin MST. The Holy Trinity, Delinquent Duo, First Ed MRL, Graceful Charity, First Ed from Starter Deck Pegasus, and then Ulti First Pot of Greed from the Kaiba pack. There is some disparity as to whether or not foreign is higher rarity with the duelist packs and stuff like that. But I just like the way the Italian looked over the English. I think the name looks really cool. So, I mean, technically the English might be like $1 more, but they're pretty much on parity, to be honest with you. There is one thing I do want to mention for Max Rarity Goat. There is a pack, technically, that is a higher rarity than First Ed MRL, and that is First Ed MRLE. That is actually the first spell ruler printing in Europe as MRL-E instead of EN. So that is technically the highest rarity, but those cards are pretty much impossible to find. I saw an MST on the internet for like $70, which was MRL-E. But I have the Suijin MST. But if you can find like other cards like the Duo and stuff like that, MRL-E, that's technically the highest rarity. But that's just kind of getting into semantics for like rare packs and stuff like that. But for the most part, if you can find MRL first edition, that should be good enough for most people. And as for the traps that I play 2 super rare Sakuretsu armor. These are CP. These look really cool. Sakuretsu armor was always one of the cards that I remembered from just being a kid. Such a blowout card when your opponent attacks with like BLS and you just Sakuretsu them, or they attack with Chaos Sorcerer because they get greedy. Obviously this shit gets turned off by Jinzo, but there's been a lot of times where this card is just great at removing a problem monster early on, where I don't have to use or waste my resources late game trying to like grind it out. This card catches people off guard. People play around Mirror Force where they'll like turn one monster to defense and attack you directly with like a big monster, but still Sakuretsu just gets rid of that one monster, and then the next turn when they change that other monster to attack because they think they're safe, you just hit them with like a Mirror Force or another Saku. For the destruction and spot removal cards I play 1 Ring of Destruction. This is Ultimate Rare First Edition, Duelist Pack Kaiba, kind of like the Pot of Greed. I do actually have the Secret Rare, but there's some disparity as to whether or not this or the Secret Rare is the highest rarity, so that's why I just kind of keep both. Whichever it settles on later, that's the one I'll put in this deck. And Ring of Destruction is actually one of those cards that has one of those weird rulings in GOAT format that I love so much. In game 1, if you both kill yourselves off a Ring of Destruction because it burns you simultaneously, it doesn't burn you first and then your opponent like the errata did when they changed the card text for it. In the original ruling in GOAT format, you can actually cause game 1 to be a tie if you're both under like 3,000 and you like a Ring of Destruction of BLS. You both tie, there is no game 2, and then you immediately go to game 3. It's just one of those weird rulings that I think is just so unique to GOAT format that you can skip game 2 and go straight to game 3 because game 1 was a tie. It's just such a weird like old school thing, and that's kind of just what I love about GOAT format, these weird awkward ass rulings. I also play Torrential Tribute. you just play it at 1. It helps you late game if your opponent scapegoats and you just torrential. It's actually a really, really good card value because scapegoat allows them to go pretty much off with Metamorphosis and stuff like that. Torrential catches people off guard too, because usually in the start of the game, if you set 1, set torrential, and you just let them continue to build their board without flipping torrential until they try and go a little too much, and they get greedy with it, and you flip the torrential on them. They're like, oh motherfucker, I knew you had that set. That's something I really love. Just like sitting on torrential, such a great feeling because they're gonna summon something. You just don't not summon in GOAT format unless you're actually really smart or you just bricked. But torrential is just one of those cards. Could be a blowout, kind of like Mirror Force. Catches people off guard, and that's what I like about it. And like I said, Mirror Force, the first Ed Ultra. This is technically the highest rarity unless you play like the Bandai cards, because there's a Bandai Mirror Force that's like super hard to find. It's like there's only like 500 made, but this is the highest rarity English, without getting into any of those prize cards or like limited edition Japanese cards from like 1994. This is the highest rarity. This was actually pretty hard to find. I got it for 20 bucks at Nats, so can't complain. Pretty good price, I think, to be honest with you. I then play 1 super rare Dust Tornado, and then I play 1 Call of the Haunted. There's not too much revival in this game, but Premature Burial and Call of the Haunted are pretty much the mainstay staples you kind of need to leave in the deck, so you don't get blown out by something like Torrential. And as for the extra deck, there are some cards that I am missing max rarity, but I do have First Ed Ultra 1000 as restrict. There's technically the Japanese Ulti, which is the first, I think, Ultimate Rare ever printed. That technically could be the highest rarity, but I'm not sure if I actually want to venture out to the Japanese cards. I think I might just want to keep it like TCG max rarity GOAT, because once you go into the Japanese market, there's like prize cards and nonsense like that, and I don't think I want to go that deep with this, to be honest with you. I do have, other copies, but I'm just keeping one for the sake of the video. There's the Ultimate Rare First Edition Dark Blade. This card's really good, just another Metamorphosis target. It's actually really decent against Chaos Control. That's kind of what, most of your side deck is kind of geared towards, because that's the one deck that really does hurt GOAT. King Dragoon, Ulti First. It's a really, really nice card. I got this at Nats as well for a pretty good price. So this last Nats was amazing for, me finding my cards. I have 1 Dark Balter, First Edition Super Rare, nothing crazy. 1 Reaper on Nightmare, First Edition Super. Same for the Ryu Senshi. This is one of the cards that I actually don't have highest rarity because it became a spicy tech card with Waking the Dragon. This is the ultra rare Lost Warrior from Another Planet. I just don't have the first edition. I picked this up for like 4 bucks, and then it like went to stupid amounts, but I still kept it because I'm not going to sell that. This Gatling Dragon Ultimate Rare First Edition I actually had since I was about like 10 or 12. Just happened to be one of those cards that I kept in good condition and randomly happened to have, and it's just something that I've continued to play as I kept playing Yu-Gi-Oh. So I decided to throw it in my GOAT deck. It is actually something you do play in GOAT, but it just has like nostalgic value to me. And there's Dark Flare Knight. This is not the highest rarity. There are some other cards you can play in your extra deck if you want. I know you can play like Moki King. I think that's one of them, or the Ojama Fusion. But those are the cards that I just don't have yet. I'm working on getting them, but they're not stuff that really has come up for me. So that's kind of where I get into like the weird part where like, do I go for max rarity cards that you can play in the format but I don't want to play? And that's just where it starts to like fall down the rabbit hole. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you guys for watching. If you have any questions or suggestions, about stuff that's max rarity or not max rarity that I should, upgrade in my deck, or your opinion about GOAT format in general, don't hesitate to let me know in the comment section down below. I love to read your comments, guys. And I think that's it. So don't forget to click like and subscribe because it's free, it's fun, and I'll see you guys in the next one.